What could derail Georgia this season is Kirby Smart's loyalty to offensive coordinator Mike Bobo. Mike Bobo, Georgia fans wanted his head served on the silver platter last year with how the offense was just stuck in the mud all throughout the entirety of 2024. The play calling got really predictable with him just spamming bubble screens left and right. Georgia dropped from being top 10 in explosive plays to being 23rd in the country in that department. The ground game uncharacteristically wasn't good. The offensive line play wasn't up to standard from what you normally have grown accustomed to seeing the Georgia offensive line play at. And the wide receiver play was downright atrocious. You had a wide receiving core that led the nation in drops. And all of those issues get placed on the shoulders of Mike Bobo. Kirby Smart, however, though, instead of firing Mike Bobo, which is the thing that Georgia fans were hoping that he did, he decided to remain loyal to him and retain him as his offensive coordinator. And if Georgia's season once again falls short of a national championship and the offense is having the same issues that they did last year, then Kirby Smart's loyalty ultimately could be the kryptonite to Georgia once again winning another national championship. Mike Bobo, I'm going to go out on a limb and defend him. There's only so much that you can do calling plays when you have so much going against you. The offensive line didn't have the depth to overcome some of the injuries that they had to deal with, like when they lost Tate Ratledge for a few weeks. You also had a ground game that was unable to get going due to the injuries and the inconsistencies that Georgia had up front. And what can you possibly call as an offensive coordinator when you have wide receivers that have defensive backhands? Because when you have as many drops as what Georgia's receiving core did in 2024, essentially you wouldn't be wrong to believe that they had guys that should have been defensive backs. My high school coach used to always say, you can't play receiver if you can't catch the ball. You should be playing defensive back, because those guys don't really have good hands, which is why they play DB and not receiver. When you're an offensive coordinator and you're boxed in like how Mike Bobo was, with just so many things going against you as a play caller, there's only so much that you can scheme around that. Calling bubble screens probably gave Georgia the best chance in his eyes of getting yardage, because when your receivers can't be trusted to catch passes, what else can you do in certain situations? You get in third and long, you got a better chance converting with a wide receiver screen than what you do trying to hope and pray that one of your receivers can learn how to catch. Yes, Mike Bobo deserves a lot of responsibility for how bad Georgia's offense was at times last year. At the same time, you also have to admit that the personnel Georgia had last year on the offense side of football was not good. Players still have to go out there and make plays, which Georgia's receivers, Georgia's offensive line, Georgia's rushing attack was unable to do. As a play caller, you have the old Jerry Maguire quote, "Help me, help you." Mike Bobo puts the players in position to make plays. The players have to go out there and execute them. So for Kirby Smart, he sees the drops that Georgia had, the inconsistency with the offensive line play, the rushing attack not being good, and a quarterback in Carson Beck who you had to overly rely on to win you games, having more on his shoulder this year than what he had the previous season. It was right for him to retain Mike Bobo. It was right for him to stay loyal to Mike Bobo, because in 2023, Georgia had one of the best offenses in college football. You can't fire a guy because of one bad year. And at times, the play calling was a little bit as a scapegoat for Georgia fans to use instead of blaming the personnel. It's easy to blame the guy calling the plays and easy to overlook and not hold the guys who have to go out there and actually execute the plays that Mike Bobo calls accountable. Changing offensive coordinators, even if Georgia had the best offensive coordinator in college football last year, they still would have gotten the same results. The offense just wasn't good. When you got a quarterback that's giving out turnovers like he's Santa's helper, what can you do if you're a play caller? How much can you change your scheme? How much can you adapt the play calling when you just have players that can't execute? I'm not making excuses. I'm telling you the truth. Put yourself in Mike Bobo's shoes. What would you have called last year if you was Georgia's offensive coordinator with receivers that led the nation in drops, an offensive line that was inconsistent, protecting the quarterback and opening up holes on the ground, a ground game that was 103rd in rushing yards per game? What was Mike Bobo supposed to do? What would you have done differently for Mike Bobo? I want to know. I'm waiting for you guys to tell me in the comment section. For all of you who wanted Mike Bobo gone, what would you have done differently to overcome everything that Mike Bobo had to deal with, calling plays that was somewhat out of his control? I'm not saying that the play calling couldn't have been better, because it definitely could have. But there's only so much that you can do as a play caller to overcome execution problems. And that's what Georgia's offense had last year. Now, if Georgia's offense is still bad, you know what they say? Fool me one time, shame on you. Fool me two times, shame on me. And if Kirby Smart, his decision to remain loyal to Mike Bobo ends up hindering Georgia once again, it will be shame on him, and then it will be time to make a change. But Nick Saban, who was Kirby Smart's mentor, when he had a coordinator that was struggling, he never got rid of him after 1 year. It always took at least 2 or 3 years for Nick Saban to get rid of a guy. When Bill O'Brien was his offensive coordinator after Bryce Young left, what did Nick Saban do? He got rid of him. He said that we were too Bryce Young dependent. Got a new OC. Same thing with the defense. His defensive coordinator ended up leaving for Ole Miss, who was Pete Golding. People wanted Pete Golding gone. Nick Saban was extremely patient with his assistant coaches when he knew that the players weren't executing. There's only so much you can do. There's only so many plays that you can dial up if the guys aren't going out on the field and executing them to the best of their ability.